Hello, hello, beautiful souls, and welcome to day 18 of our self-love challenge. And today, what I want to talk about is kind of like how and why we bring this all together. So, for me, this really hit me, like this feeling of I'm not doing the right thing, like I'm not living the life I'm meant to live. It really hit me hard after I had my third child. And he is different than my first two. And I believe that it happened when I was pregnant with him. I was in a robbery situation. And so I have my speculations as to how that's my belief anyway. I think that I had like a lot of cortisol running through my body whenever I saw a gun and I had a baby inside of me. And anyway, that's a topic for another day. But he's very different. The authoritarian parenting that I was deeply invested in with my first two and him, my third as well, like it just didn't work on him. Like he was extra stubborn. Like he didn't respond to the yelling, whereas my other two complied. The fear worked with them. And with my third child, it just didn't. It didn't have any effect on him whatsoever. And he's always had like this intense amount of energy. He would trigger me. This is the thing. Like I was like to the point where, and it's like terrible, right? For a mother to feel this way about their child. Like I just couldn't take him. I couldn't be around him without feeling all sorts of like frustration, right? And he just triggered the shit out of me, like all day, every day. And I did not want to feel that way about my kid, and I had an immense amount of guilt inside for feeling that way. And so the thing about it is like, our beliefs and our thoughts bring up emotions, and that drives our behaviors, right? So, for example, one of the things that he does that used to trigger me, like out of my mind, is that he calls everything how he sees it. So if he sees something, there's like no regulator, he just says it. And it's normally true. It's definitely true to him, whatever it is. Like he's not speaking lies, and it's not ill intent either. But it's like if he sees something that he feels is wrong, he calls it out. And this used to trigger me so bad. Like, why don't you just keep that to yourself sort of feeling, right? And his energy, and like he interrupts a lot. He used to drive me nuts. So there's so many more too we could get into, but we'll stick with those two. Calling things as he sees it and interrupting. And the more that I started looking into my thoughts and my beliefs, my emotions, revisiting my childhood, I realized that I used to be this way. Like I see everything. And there was a time whenever I would call it out. long ago, when I was a young little girl, I would call these things out. And in doing that, I would get punished. I would get criticized. And so I hid that part of me. I made it into a shadow of myself. So not wanting to be triggered by my child, like what I wanted was to be able to be whatever he needs. Like, I wanted to be a mother who he could feel the love coming from, that could nurture him, that could hold whatever space he needed. But my behaviors, while I was drawing from old thoughts and beliefs that it's wrong to call things out, and then the emotions that come with it, because whenever I did it in the past, I got in trouble. So that's where that all comes from. So he's basically showing me how I used to be, how my authentic self actually is. And because that was all pushed down and neglected, punished, criticized, not accepted by me and the people around me, like, he's bringing that all up. That's what the trigger is with him, is that, hey, this is who you actually are. So then at this point, I get a choice to continue the cycle of teaching self-abandonment, or I can dig into myself and figure out why these triggers, like, is it actually wrong to express yourself whenever you see something that's not right? To ask questions about it, you know? All he wants to know is what to do in this world, you know? And as parents, we have so much power that we can make them abandon themselves. So the transformation for me has been internal, and then it goes external too. But 5 years ago, before I really started this whole thing, like, I didn't care about self-love. I didn't care about myself. I didn't think I mattered at all. However, my kids did matter, and that's why I started this. It had nothing, like, I didn't have any part of me that wanted to learn to love myself to make me feel better, you know? There was a part of me that wanted to feel differently whenever I was interacting with my kids. I didn't want to feel frustrated and angry and triggered by them, which is what would make me yell, you know? Not feeling heard, you know, not trying to get them to do something, and then they don't want to do it. Maybe I was asking from a different room or whatever, but, like, I would just yell all the time. Like, it was my main form of communication. It just felt not okay, even though it was familiar and I survived it. It still just felt icky and wrong. And there was one day that I yelled at him. I had asked him to be quiet. I was listening to a song, having a moment, crying. I was grieving my mom at the time. And he kept talking, right? It's how he triggers me, is won't be quiet. And it's so funny because I am this way too. But I yelled, and he went in his room and cried, and I went in there and I said, hey, what's up, you know? And he said, it hurts my ears, mommy, you know? And that's whenever I really realized that my feeling was right, because I was second guessing myself the whole time, you know, I would talk to people and they were all very supportive, but they're like telling me that I'm not doing anything wrong, even though I knew in my heart of hearts that it wasn't how I wanted to be as a mother. Like, so yeah, 5 years ago, he did not trust me. Like, he wouldn't go anywhere with me, and rightfully so. Like, I was not a safe person for him. And through this work, like, it's changed everything. Like, it changed the way that I feel inside whenever I'm around them. I do not have, like, I mean, I still get annoyed, but then that's just another trigger to look at, right? And it gets me closer to who I actually am, too. So I'm, like, more grateful for him, and it's not like whenever I'm triggered, now I yell at them and try and change them. I look into myself and say, hey, what is this trying to show me, you know? And so I feel like at peace when I'm with them, and joy, and I love to watch him express himself. And the questions that he asks, like, if you actually take the time to stop and answer them instead of just being like, oh my God, you have too many questions, you know? Like, I learned so much, and I feel so much better. I don't feel guilty anymore. And, like, he can trust me. We can go on adventures together. We went to Cedar Key to watch the fireworks this year. And he's really, like, scared of thunderstorms. And there was one there. So we stayed in the car until it was over. But there was lightning afterwards. And, like, I just kept telling him that he was safe. And, you know, I would embrace him. And, like, instead of being like, stop being scared, you know, and then feeling all, like, oh my God, I'm going to have to leave because this kid can't handle lightning. So you can see how it's all these thoughts about, like, how we're supposed to be that turn into the beliefs of how we're supposed to be, that turn into emotions because our soul knows that we're actually not supposed to be that way. We're supposed to be however we are, even if it's too much, even if it's too many questions, even if it's too honest, you know, like, that's a them problem. It always was. There was never anything wrong with me. There was never anything wrong with me asking questions, debating things, you know? If something didn't sit right with me, I would ask more questions, and then it would turn into arguments, like, and it would get all heated, and it makes you not want to do that. So then that carried through to my kids. And so, yeah, like, this all started because I didn't want to feel the way I was feeling around my kids. I didn't want to feel annoyed by them 24 hours a day. I'm not saying that it's, like, bad to feel annoyed by them. Sometimes it is what it is, you know, like, but instead of turning that annoyance onto them and making it about them and something wrong with them, I've been reflecting it back in myself and unraveling all of this bullshit beliefs and thoughts. And it all comes to, like, looking at the behaviors that you're actually doing that you may not want to be doing. It feels wrong, right? It feels wrong to yell at your kids. Like, we don't yell at adults. Why do we think it's okay to yell at kids? If we hit adults, we go to jail. Why do we think it's okay to do that to kids? Because they're smaller and won't tell on us? Are you kidding me? Like, you know, and that's how I used to think. I used to think it was just normal, and it's wrong to not do it, actually. You know, spare the rod, spoil the child. Like, there's a way to discipline, and it's through modeling the behavior that you want. And to do that, you have to be able to not yell and not hit. But whenever I was stuck in the reactiveness of all of it, I wasn't really in control. It was this thought saying, oh, your kid's behaving bad, so you need to yell, scream, punish, make them go to their room, take away all their things, whatever, you know? Instead of getting down to their level and figuring out what's actually going on, because what it is, all behavior is communication. So there's some unmet need somewhere in there, and we get to show them how to do that. But it's really hard to do that if you don't know how to do it yourself. So that's what all this work has been about for me. And in that process, I've learned that I do matter, and that I am enough, and I am lovable. And so even though I didn't start this out for me and didn't think that I deserved it, I started it out for my kids so that, you know, I wasn't yelling at them all the time, and I wasn't feeling just disgusting with myself, you know, unable to look at myself in the mirror with like reverence, because I mean, honestly, it's like I was bullying my kids. I was bullying children because I couldn't handle my own stuff. And I mean, no judgment, no criticizing, it's just what it was. I didn't know any better. I'm so grateful for all of the knowledge that I've gained because of it. And the relationship with my kids, like I say, he didn't trust me. He wouldn't go anywhere with me. Like, it's heartbreaking as a mother to know that, to feel that. And so regaining his trust has been a series of apologizing for the times that I have been reactive in words he can understand, and really just showing up every single day trying to be better than I was yesterday, learning more things about myself that are affecting him, like my belief that I had to yell to be heard. You know, you don't. Like, it's a belief, it's a thought, it's a pattern, and it doesn't have to continue. There are other ways, and learning those other ways and connecting instead of trying to control has been huge. And then it's like, instead of controlling and saying, I'm up here, you're down here, switching that to connecting, like, you actually get to solve the issues and you have connection. Like, oh, it's so good. And so that's the transformation. Is I went from having a child who was scared of me, who didn't trust me, you know, to now we have this relationship where I can hold space for him even at his most intimidating times, and like, he can talk to me about anything. He's free to express himself around me. He can trust me. There's a connection there. And he knows, you know, I'm going to make mistakes just like I know he's going to make mistakes, and we can trust that we're going to work through it together instead of this kind of dynamic. And honestly, the whole control dynamic it's just like, you want your kid to be seen as good, right? Like, but that's like so not important. Like, let your kid be who your kid is, and everything else just kind of works out. And on top of that, I get to feel better. I actually feel good about the way I mother now. You know? I don't have guilt around the way I'm doing things now, I still carry a lot of guilt for not knowing better. And I don't know if that's ever going to go away, but whatever. Whenever that comes up, I think about, if at any given time in my childhood, if my mom would have like really dove into herself to quit the drinking and figure out what was going on, creating all of the chaos, like I would have been so happy. And it wouldn't have mattered if I was 6 or 16. Like, it was the thing I wanted the most. And so being able to do that for my kids is such a blessing. And it blesses them and me. Even though I didn't start it for me, I didn't really care about me. I had already written myself off as like a lost cause, And that's like the power of this. Like, you're not a lost cause. You are worth it. Even if you don't have kids, like, and I think too, if I wouldn't have had kids, that I don't think I would be here. So I'm so grateful for everything that they show me, for all the things that they're bringing back to life that I've shoved down and forgotten about and deemed bad, because they bring it up and show me how it's not bad. And that when other people do see it as bad, well, that's a trigger for them to work through. And maybe they'll get this same enlightenment, And if not, then they can feel triggered inside, and that's okay. It doesn't have to affect my kid. So, one of the things that I did at the beginning of my journey with self-love was I figured out what love meant. We already went over that. And then figuring out what self is. What self are we loving? Who is self? Who are you? Say, I'm a mom. I do this job. I'm a daughter. I'm a sister. I'm a wife. That's not who you are. You're so much more than that. You are like the way you smile, the way you walk, the way you talk, the way your energy is. Like, who are you when you strip away all of those titles? And that is what our challenge is for today, because that's where I started with this, because myself at that time was very angry and full of rage, full of criticism, guilt, shame. So it was really hard to love myself. But whenever I really stripped away all the titles and sunk into who I actually am, it's like I'm just this human full of love, and there's all this anger and stuff in there too, but it's like at the end of the day, it is like you can feel it in your heart, like, can you feel that? Who you actually are? And it's important to be able to feel that, because you can always call yourself back to that core. If everybody went away, who are you? If your job went away, like, what do you actually like, prefer? What are your values? So that's the challenge today. Who are you? Why are you here? I'll see you guys tomorrow.